Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Supatease video. And with this one, I'm finally releasing my tier lists for patch 9.2, and this one will be the PvP melee DPS. There is a lot going on in 9.2. Pandora's box has been opened in terms of potential and chaos, with 2 legendaries being equipped, set bonuses, trinket changes, new trinkets. There's a lot that is going to be kind of opening up new options for builds, but also potentially shaking up things in terms of competitive viability. So let's get started. We've got the Arms Warrior as the first specialization. This spec has been S tier for the entire expansion. Feel like I'm going to be taking a pretty risky gamble with where I'm going to be putting it on this tier list. I actually had to make this tier list multiple times to try and figure out where exactly I wanted to slot everything at the moment. But a recent change to the charge execute of the warrior, putting it on a cooldown, makes me think that warriors are going to be easier to kite, and their self-sustainability when compared to some of these other melee DPS that are going to be at the top of the list is not really comparable. And now you're likely going to be pigeonholed into Kyrian. The Kyrian warrior is just going to be getting way more benefit than any of the other covenants. The Necrolord legendary is not going to provide you any benefit in 3v3 arena. The Venthyr one, unfortunately, is falling a lot flat, especially since the death sentence change. And also, randomly, there was a lot of Death Knights on the PTR testing that I did, and they actually just hard counter condemn. Which is pretty funny to me because Death Knight has had a pretty rough road. But if you want to beat a Condemn Warrior, you can definitely pick up a Death Knight to make them to do basically no damage. I'm taking a gamble. It's still a phenomenal spec, has an amazing toolkit, is going to shut down classes. And if you're a Rogue Mage player, you're going to hate me for putting Warrior on A tier and not S tier because it's so great at disrupting that type of matchup. But I think its sustainability and its mobility are much more limited than some of the other options currently. And I'm bringing it down just a little bit of a peg. Maybe it's not even Warrior going down a peg, but other specs actually getting on top, and there was quite a bit of a surprise. Assassination Rogue, this is another specialization that's going to be benefiting from 2 legendaries, being able to get the reduced cooldown on Vendetta and getting more burst damage available to your specialization. I think that it's a much different spec than Subtlety in terms of the compositions that you're going to be running. I think the Shadow Priest Rogue, the Boomkin Rogue for the Assassination is likely going to be where it ends up lying. I think that's very similar to Arms Warrior in terms of its mobility and its self-sustainability and its damage output. It's still a really good spec. It's going to fit into that niche specifically, but I think that it is held back from being onto the S tier because it doesn't have that infinite sustain potential or unlimited mobility option to it, or kind of just ridiculous damage at all times vibe to it that I was getting from some other specializations, but still a really solid spec. Enhancement Shaman, this one's a bit of a gamble. In my mind, I think it's a spec that could have a lot of potential, but a gamble. I would really like to see changes to its honor talent Shamanism, which grants Bloodlust to the Enhancement Shaman. It costs 20% of their baseline mana, which means they can't purge or heal basically for the rest of the game to get this measly little haste buff. And I feel like it was a fun talent. That's kind of the niche of Enhancement Shaman to my memory in World of Warcraft PvP is like Wolves pop, Bloodlust up, and they're going in. I'd actually like to see Shamanism reduced on its mana cost. So Shaman maybe could synergize with some other specs, Bloodlusting some casters even, to open up its options, because right now it's pretty heavily carried by Warrior or maybe Windwalker. It's getting a lot of damage increases to its conduits. I didn't get to see a lot of it on the PTR, which is why I think that my ranking for it is going to put it a little bit lower here. I'm putting it in the middle of the pack because I think it has a lot of potential. There's a lot of changes coming into it for its sustained damage overall, but I'd like to see the niche of that Shamanism talent changed. And I think that it's still kind of a risky spec to pick, but it's a solid one. Likely still going to be carried by Warriors in 3v3. Feral Druid, in my mind, this is an S tier specialization. I'm just jumping that up right there. Let's say if you're on the left side of this tier list, it means you're the best in that tier. Moving down to the right to the worst in that tier, it's currently the best because it's the only one up there. For example, in Arms Warrior, I'm putting it ahead of Assassination. So just if you're not aware of that, Feral Druid has infinite sustainability. It's very tanky. This new talent, this new trinket that's coming in that makes you immune to CC, 3 CC effects. You can actually pop that, go into stealth, and open with a stun convoke that can't be stopped by anything, basically. Like, you would have to jump on that target and dump 3 instant CCs back to back to back to back to try and get it to stop. I'm not sure if that trinket is intended to work as an aura mastery, because it doesn't seem like you can interrupt either, but that was kind of a surprise I wasn't expecting from the Feral Druids. But having unlimited mobility, unlimited sustainability through its healing and its personal durability on its team, I'm imagining that jungle is still going to be a phenomenal comp. I'm imagining that we're still going to see Kitty Cleave potentially as well. Although Warriors maybe not wanting to go Necrolord as much might hold it back. But Feral Druid is still a great spec. definitely going to be competitive in 3v3. I don't see it really moving anywhere. Jungle is going to be fantastic, and jungle might have some spec mix-ups for the hunter as well. Now, Frost Death Knight is kind of the main focus point for me in this patch in terms of could have the most potential. The damage that Death Knights were doing on the PTR, there was actually a lot of them on the most recent testing that I did yesterday. We're pumping out pretty big damage, especially during the Abomination limbs, likely still going to be remaining Necrolord. For me, it's one of those specs where it's like, it has a lot of potential, could potentially be really good. I actually think Death Knight, even right now in the current patch, at least Frost, running with a warrior and running that TSG is really strong, and that comp could be even better. So while I'm putting it individually on the B tier, when combined and mixed into certain comps, it could be an S tier composition that pulls it back up, right? So I'll likely be doing like a top 10 arena comps video, and then you'll likely see like, oh, Frost Death Knight has a really amazing comp, but as a standalone, trying to synergize it with other specs, I think you might get held back a little bit. But Death Knight, maybe not. This is what I'm saying. Like, I made this tier list so many times that this is actually really tough for me to put Frost Death Knight in one spot, or Death Knight in general, because they're going to be doing so much more damage during their Abomination limbs. I'm almost tempted to put it on A tier right now. I think I'm going to do it. I'm going to take the gamble here. I think Death Knight's in a lot stronger of a position with next patch, especially the synergies. You might be running these grenade trinkets as well, gripping into the grenades and then exploding a whole team or something like that. I could see having a lot of potential. I think TSG is going to be really good, so I'm actually upping Frost DK a little bit here. Fury Warrior, it's a solid spec. With the mortal wounds that they added to it, it's coming close to Arms Warrior, but I still think it's going to come up short. At least in 3v3 at the moment. I'm putting it down in C. And again, this is like a prediction based on my assessments and playing on the PTR. We had to play against the Blues, played against some top level players. I saw it. It felt all right. It didn't feel terrible when I saw it. But I don't think it's going to be the spectacular spec. It's also maybe just a little bit less popular. It's competing with Arms that has always kind of been kept at the top. So I don't feel comfortable putting it super high. I think it's a risky spec. But it was decent. It's not completely out of here. Havoc Demon Hunter, really easy. This spec is going to be crazy. Just super powerful, super high sustain. Its Necrolord Legendary is going to provide you a ton of more extra damage, and you're going to have insane self-sustainability pumping out those demons as Necrolord. Demon Hunters aren't going anywhere. You can already see them in the current patch of 9.1.5, and they're getting even better. And that's what I meant by being like a cut above, to be on the S tier with mobility and self-sustainability. I think that the Necrolord Havoc Demon Hunter is going to be maybe the best spec in the game, at least one of them up there. The Boomy DH, again, I don't think that's going anywhere. I think that spec's going to be, that comp's going to be fantastic. And it's kind of now the time to make a Demon Hunter if you haven't made one already. Outlaw Rogue, again, it's kind of a hit or miss spec for me. It's really tough for me to say that it's going to be high ranked. I think that Assassination pumps up more sustained damage. Subtlety Rogue fits better into setup burst comps like the Rogue Mage or Hunter Rogue. So it's like it's competing for both worlds. It's a little bit tankier of a spec. It can brawl a little bit harder, but that doesn't really matter in the current meta. It's all about having enough damage to kill in these cooldown windows. And I'm not sure if Outlaw is going to be able to step into that position for 3s. It's likely to still remain pretty good in 2s. But for 3s, I think it's going to fall short. I think for me, I want to put it, I don't think it's fair to put it on enhancement. I don't think it has the type of sustain and team play that enhancement has. And it's actually maybe tied for Fury if there's a way to put a tie. At the moment, Ret Paladin, another easy pick. It's between Ret and DH, really, I think, at this moment for me in terms of like what is the best melee DPS. And again, Necrolord Ret seems to be where most people were going with 9.2 in the PTR at least. It has a lot of durability, a lot of tankiness with all the extra shields, the ability to generate a lot of extra damage, getting your Final Verdict legendary, getting your Necrolord specific legendary for your Vanquisher's Hammer. You're just chunking people with Final Verdicts. Like, you are doing insane damage throughout that, and it felt absolutely fantastic, like insane spec at the moment. And again, having the sustainability with the Word of Glories, durability, the Unbound Freedoms to be able to sprint in to get onto your target, I think are what are enabling it to be a little bit of a cut above this layer of the A tier at the moment. Subtlety Rogue, this might be coming as a surprise. Maybe I have to hold it back again because it's comp limited, right? I think Rogue Mage is going to be absolutely insane. Holy Priest got a ton of buffs, is doing a lot of damage, can keep people alive forever. Having the Chastise for extra setup in Rogue Mage particularly is going to be very deadly. Fire Mage was ridiculously powerful on the 9.2 PTR, so it's a very, very strong expectation for me that Rogue Mage Priest is going to be one of the best comps in the game at the moment, and Subtlety Rogue is one of those. But as a standalone spec in terms of its other options, not going to really have a lot of other options, so maybe it's more fair to put it as a standalone slightly below, and I would say it's like maybe tied for Arms Warrior at the moment on the A tier. Now Survival Hunter, this is going to come as a surprise. I'm putting it at the bottom of the S tier, but I actually think that it could be an S tier specialization, especially in Jungle Cleave. The Wildfire Grenades build was doing a tremendous amount of damage. It was putting out big numbers. I think that this could be the patch for Survival Hunter to make a comeback into the game, and I would personally feel confident trying it myself at the moment. And with what I saw and with what the build looks like, I think that it could be a really good pick at the moment, especially within jungle. Maybe I shouldn't put it on S tier just because I think the jungle comp, much like the rogue, so maybe we put it tied. We put it tied here, a three-way tie right here between survival, subtlety, and arms on the A tier. But really strong potential to be an insane specialization. Unholy Death Knight, this has been kind of the really kind of in question. Is this spec actually going to be able to compete? It's going to be getting a lot of damage during its Abomination Limb. And like I said, for the TSG, I think that it's going to be fitting into that composition really well. Maybe we put it tied for Frost Death Knight. It seems like the Death Knight specs were coming pretty close to each other when I was playing against them. They were both equally as intimidating. You have a lot of lockdown, getting onto a healer, training down healers, and you're going to feel pretty powerful with how much damage you're getting from the double legendary, getting your empowered minion, getting bonus damages to that, and getting your Abomination Limb doing more damage. I think that you could have potential. The A tier is looking pretty fat, and that's honestly because the melee DPS specs are actually pretty close to being really competitive. Mostly I'm a bit nervous to put Fury or Outlaw too high because I don't feel like they fit into their own niches and the niches they're competing with. I think there's slightly better options. And then Windwalker Monk. Windwalker Monk, I think, comes into A, and I think that's because it's not as tanky as the other options in the S tier. If you catch it in a bad position, you can punish it more easily. So for me, I think it's coming in above Assassination, tied maybe a four-way tie in the A tier right now between Arm, Subtlety, Survival, and Windwalker. And then the Death Knights having potential to be up here in this top level, Assassination. I almost maybe want to pull it down maybe when I'm thinking about it in competition with some of these other specializations. But you basically can't go wrong with melee DPS in patch 9.2. I would just be hesitant to lock in Fury or Outlaw at this point. Enhance could either be a make or break, but all of these options on the top are phenomenal, great, have their own niches. I'll cover that in a top 10 arena video to more specifically outline it, so make sure you subscribe to the channel to get that information if you're interested in that type of information. Other than that, I'm streaming every day on twitch.tv/Supatease, so if you'd like to follow the 0 to Hero, the rank 1 pushes, some viewer games, anything like that, I do my best to stream every day. I think I'm at 104 days streamed in a row now, and that's twitch.tv/Supatease. But other than that, if you liked the video, thumbs it up, comment down below with your thoughts. What are you thinking with all of the changes coming through for the specializations? What's catching your eye in particular? Are you looking to pick up anything in particular? Let us know in the comments down below, because it is, again, the purpose of this channel to be a resource for everybody to make the right decision to enhance their experience with World of Warcraft. And other than that, thank you very much for watching the video. I will catch you in the next one.